Good morning, class. Today we're going to talk about Most Wanted and how to not suck at it. So let's get into it. So today we're talking about the most confusing game mode that isn't actually a game mode, Most Wanted. Having said that, Most Wanted is a bit of a confusing mess, so go snort some Adderall, grab a pen and paper, and let's break it all down. Important note, I am not a doctor. In all seriousness, this video is easily going to be the most complicated, convoluted, and lengthy of all the videos in this series, so don't be intimidated. If you can make it through this video, you'll have a really easy time with the rest. It's not too tricky, it's just a lot of information to take in. So if you don't remember everything after your first viewing, don't sweat it. Even I had to double check a few of the details before including them. So, to try and simplify things, let me start by saying that Most Wanted is actually 3 separate but interconnected features. First, there's the Most Wanted as they appear in your activity log, then there's the Most Wanted system itself with its own set of rewards, and finally there's the Most Wanted game mode that is introduced to you by Rocket Raccoon, which you'll attempt to complete daily. I don't like calling it a game mode because, unlike literally every other game mode in Marvel Future Revolution, you don't queue up for it or load into a fresh instance to complete it. However, to avoid causing even more unnecessary confusion, you'll hear me refer to it as the Most Wanted game mode just to differentiate it from the Most Wanted system and the Most Wanted section of your activity log. Alright, are you confused yet? Don't worry, I will make this a bit easier to digest. The most important thing to note when it comes to Most Wanted is that it's an excellent way to score Omega cards. So I'll repeat that. Most Wanted, it gets you Omega cards. If I tried to explain everything you needed to know about Omega cards in this video, it would be 40 minutes long. So I'll make a separate video at some point all about Omega cards. All you need to know for now is that looting Omega cards is awesome, looting Omega cards with high star ratings is even more awesome. And as previously mentioned, Most Wanted is an excellent way to score Omega cards. We're going to tackle the 3 forms of Most Wanted in order of simplicity, so let's start with the simplest one. Number 1, Most Wanted as seen in your activity log. This one is actually pretty simple. If you go to Records and then Activity Log, you can browse the various objectives for each region. Each region has a section titled Most Wanted, which lists all of the Most Wanted targets that spawn in that region. Unlike some of the other sections, completing the Most Wanted objectives individually do not directly earn you a reward. However, there are incremental rewards for completing all of the activities in a given region, so you might reach a reward threshold on your way to fully clearing a region. Typically, you'll complete every other section of your activity log for a given region well before you complete the Most Wanted section. This is because some of the Most Wanted objectives take a very long time. For example, the activity log for Sakaar wants you to kill Cull Obsidian 30 times. Cull Obsidian is a very rare spawn because he's what's known as a prime target, which we'll cover in just a bit. To try to keep this section brief, I'll end on this tip. There's no reason to prioritize hunting down Most Wanted targets for a given region until you've literally completed every other activity for that region. At that point, it does make sense to hunt down the remaining Most Wanted targets, but that's because the reward you get from your activity log for full clearing a region is typically pretty good. Alright, on to the second section, and the most important form, number 2, the Most Wanted system. So we'll start with the basics. So every zone within every region randomly spawns a selection of Most Wanted targets throughout the day, round the clock. You might see 0 Most Wanted targets on the map, or you might see up to 3 at once. I don't think I've seen more than 3 spawned at a time in a normal zone, but I could be wrong. When it comes to Most Wanted targets, there are 2 types, primes and non-primes. So what's the difference? A non-prime is essentially a mini-boss, while a prime is essentially a world boss. While a non-prime still has 5 health bars and is certainly no pushover, non-primes are chumps compared to prime targets. The prime target is essentially a raid boss that you'll encounter in the open world, complete with terrifying raid boss mechanics and insane stats. It's not uncommon to see 30 or more players simultaneously ganging up on a single prime target. You can identify whether a target is a prime or not by checking your activity log. Primes are shown with a red skull symbol and 3 stars. You'll also typically get a big annoying banner that takes over the middle of your screen for an irritatingly long amount of time, which lets you know that a prime target has spawned in your zone. Every zone has a specific pool of targets that are unique to that zone. For example, the Cursed Forest zone in the Midgardia region will only ever spawn one of the following: Dark Priest Talar, Grimchill, or Loki. Dark Priest Talar and Grimchill are non-primes, and Loki is a prime. You won't find any of those 3 targets in any other zones. They are exclusive to the Cursed Forest. There are also designated spawn locations for most wanted targets on every map. If you click your minimap and then click on the third tab with the skull symbol, you can see all of the designated spawn locations indicated with a red skull. You'll also see a list of possible most wanted targets that may spawn listed on the left side. All this shows you is which targets can spawn and which locations they can spawn. Any of the most wanted targets for the zone can appear in any of the designated spawn locations, and there's no way to know precisely when or where one will appear. Prime targets are a bit of an exception, as they announce their arrival with a portal 60 seconds before they actually appear, so you will get a very brief heads up for them. Anyway, you can tell which most wanted targets are currently on the map by a highlighted yellow skull on the left and by a glowing yellow skull on the map, with the word appeared under it. If you tap that yellow skull, your character will automatically head toward the target. Now, sometimes you'll find yourself in a situation where you've finally located a most wanted target you've been searching for, but you're worried that other players might finish them off before you can even reach the target to get participation credit. This brings us to our first
most wanted hunting pro tip.
Check for teleporters. Teleporters are shown on the map as blue diamonds. You can enter into any teleporter and exit at any other teleporter within the same map. This can save precious time when it comes to hunting a most wanted, which could be the difference between landing a hit or spending another 20 minutes searching. You can also tap the red skull, aka the most wanted symbol, in the upper right hand side of your screen to see which most wanted targets are currently spawned in your zone. If you don't see that red skull icon, there are no most wanted targets in your zone. Tapping the name of one of the targets summons the map, which allows you to tap their location and start heading toward them immediately. So what's the point of all this? Well, the short answer: Omega cards. Every day you're actually given 7 non-prime reward opportunities and 2 prime reward opportunities. There is no way to buy more, but they do refresh every day at server reset. If you don't use them, you lose them. So how do these reward opportunities work? It's pretty straightforward. You participate in a kill on a most wanted target, you get Omega cards. Every region has several zones, and every zone has its own set of Omega cards. All the most wanted targets in a given zone share the same loot table. What I mean by that is, if you're hunting for a specific Omega card from, say, the Midgardia set number 4, you can loot that card from any of the most wanted targets in the Cursed Forest. Now, quick pause to clarify something about Omega cards. So there are 3 different rarities of Omega cards: common, rare, and special. Note that their rarity has absolutely nothing to do with their star rating. You can have a 3-star rare card or a 6-star common card. As you may have guessed, commons are crap, rares are decent, and specials are awesome. You can tell them apart by their borders. Common cards have no border, rare cards have a silver border, and special cards have a gold border. When it comes to most wanted, you can forget all about special cards. The only way to acquire special cards are as a super rare drop from Omega card draw tickets in the shop, or as a super rare drop from the exclusive Omega card box that you can purchase for 6,000 Omega War tokens in the Omega War section of the shop. Alright, so why did I bring that up? So participating in a kill on a non-prime will score you 1 or 2 Omega cards in exchange for one of your reward opportunities. These Omega cards will only drop with a 1 or 2 star rating, and they'll almost always be common cards. It is possible to loot a rare Omega card from a non-prime, but it's, well, rare. As previously mentioned, you'll get 7 reward opportunities for non-primes every day, and it's a great way to farm a bunch of 1 and 2 star common cards that you can use as fodder to power up the Omega cards you actually care about. Most people consume the first 3 of their 7 non-prime reward opportunities when they take down the 3 most wanted that they're presented by Rocket Raccoon via the most wanted game mode, which we'll get into in a bit. Anyway, the reward system for prime targets functions completely differently. As I mentioned before, you do get 7 reward opportunities for non-primes every day, but you also get 2 separate reward opportunities for prime targets, and you want to make them count. Prime targets reward you with gold and health potions in addition to Omega cards, but there's a catch. Prime targets actually give you better rewards based on how much damage you did to them, ranked against the other players who participated. So if you take down a prime target by yourself, you get the first place rewards. Easy enough, right? Not exactly. Prime targets are essentially just raid bosses dropped into the open world, and they can be very difficult to take down as a new player, even with several other players helping you. Ever wonder why sometimes you see messages in world chat saying things like Loki Channel 3 and Crossbones Channel 1? Well, the reason is twofold. First, it's a nice thing to do. Some of the prime targets are quite rare, so getting a tip on where to find one can be a huge help. The other reason you'll see players posting prime locations is because prime targets are no joke. It saves players a lot of time and a lot of struggle if they can radio in some backup. We'll talk more about channels in just a bit when I share some pro tips for hunting down most wanted targets, but I do have a quick pro tip regarding prime rewards. Now, this tip won't be super useful for you as a new player, but you'll definitely want to keep it in your back pocket for later.
Most wanted hunting pro tip number 2.
If you can safely tussle with a prime, wait until you've dealt a good amount of damage before calling for backup. As a brand new player, you'll probably need someone else tanking the boss for you to even be able to deal damage. As you get stronger, however, you'll start to contend for those high-ranking rewards. I recommend waiting a bit until you've got a nice lead on the damage leaderboard, then go ahead and share the location. Other players showing up might just want the kill credit for their activity log, and the sooner the target dies, the sooner you can move on to something else. You can monitor how your damage is stacking up during the fight by clicking the red and yellow most wanted icon on the right side of the screen during the fight. Some of the early prime targets only offer mid-grade Omega card boxes even for the first place finishers, with lower rank contributors only getting low-grade Omega card boxes. Once you get to the later zones, you'll start getting the opportunity to score high-grade Omega card boxes for a high-ranking finish. Every prime target has their own loot table, which includes cards from their region specifically related to them. Prime targets are much more likely to reward you with rare cards as loot, especially if you manage to snag mid-grade or high-grade Omega card boxes. You can see the ranking payouts for each individual prime target via the activity log. This is as good a time as any to mention
Most wanted hunting pro tip number 3.
You can sometimes prompt a prime target to spawn by killing a non-prime. While the exact respawn times seem to vary, one thing we know for sure is that killing a non-prime target has a fair chance to immediately trigger a prime target spawn. This definitely doesn't work every time. In fact, it more often doesn't work. But if you're wandering around anyway just waiting for a prime target to spawn, you should definitely clear the map of any non-prime targets. There's a very real chance that you will trigger a prime spawn, especially if you have 2 or 3 non-primes that you can kill. Not only that, but you will trigger the spawn at your location, which means no additional travel time, and you'll have the full 60 seconds to call in some alliance mates for backup. You'll know you've triggered a prime target if you see a red portal appear when you finish off the non-prime. Might as well mention,
Most wanted hunting pro tip number 4.
if all else fails, AFK overnight at a designated spawn point. If you're not having any luck finding a specific target, as the tip suggests, AFK overnight at one of the designated spawn points. Players will be killing most wanted targets all throughout the night, giving you a decent chance of waking up to discover that you finally managed that 10th Ultron kill. We still have to cover the most wanted game mode itself, and most importantly, I've got a bunch of super helpful tips for how to efficiently hunt down specific targets, but this video is veered well into lecture territory, so let's take a quick pause to look at some cute baby animals. Just for 30 seconds or so to give our brains a break. This is an adorable baby sloth. And this is an adorable baby hedgehog. This is an adorable baby future murder machine. This is an adorable baby sugar glider. This is an adorable baby turtle. This is an adorable baby seal. These are adorable baby axolotl. That's an adorable baby fennec fox. That's an adorable baby finger monkey. And these are adorable platypi. Who knew? Well, that was fun. Alright, time for section 3. Most Wanted, the game mode. So every day when you log in, Rocket Raccoon will greet you with a selection of 3 most wanted targets.
Most wanted hunting pro tip number 5.
Make sure your first login every day is on your highest level character. This is important because Rocket will assign your most wanted targets based on the level of the character he talks to. If you first log in from a low level character, you'll be assigned some really low level most wanted targets. This is doubly disadvantageous because not only will you get less squad XP for each kill, but you'll get considerably worse rewards at the end for eliminating all 3. If you make this mistake, don't fret, you can actually re-roll which most wanted targets you're assigned once per day. Just make sure to swap over to your strongest character before re-rolling. Once you've been assigned your 3 most wanted targets, the goal is pretty simple. Find them and kill them. Killing them typically isn't too challenging, finding them is often the tricky part, and that's where my handy dandy pro tips come in. We've already talked about how to spot targets from the most wanted icon in the upper right, and how to auto-navigate to them via the map. I also want to quickly reiterate one of the earlier pro tips, to check for teleporters. However, there's one big tip that most players are unaware of, which can save you a ton of time. If If you've made it this far into the video, congratulations, you've reached the goods, and you deserve this. So above the minimap, you will see a channel number next to the name of the zone you're in. Channels are essentially just different identical instances of the same zone to help reduce lag and prevent overcrowding. If you tap that channel, you can actually manually switch channels. You can use this to your advantage in a big way. Looking for Grimchill in the Cursed Forest but he's not around? Switch to another channel and check again. Oftentimes this will lead to you finding your target immediately. Another pro tip when changing channels, always look for a smooth channel. Channels will either show as smooth, congested, or saturated. As the name suggests, smooth channels tend to be pretty empty, while congested channels are nearing max capacity. Saturated channels are actually at max capacity, meaning it's not possible to switch to them at that moment. The reason I recommend smooth channels is because channels with more players are more likely to have fewer most wanted targets on the field because there's more players around to quickly take them out. Upon loading into a zone, you can change channels immediately. If you try to change channels again immediately, you'll be hit with a message informing you that there's a 60-second cooldown before you can switch channels again. This is where my final tip comes into play.
Most Wanted Hunting Pro Tip number 6.
Optimize your most wanted by hunting 2 targets at once. While it's true that you can't swap channels more than once without a 60-second lockout, you can switch zones without a lockout. If you swap back to the original zone, you'll load into a random channel, whichever one had the lowest capacity, but you can now channel swap again with no lockout. It should go something like this. Let's say you're hunting 2 targets, one in Cursed Forest and one in Icy Peaks. You load into Cursed Forest, let's say channel 2, and you don't see your target. So you swap to channel 4 because it's smooth, but you still don't see your target. Rather than sitting around waiting for 60 seconds, go ahead and use your world map to travel to Icy Peaks. Let's say channel 5, where you're looking for a different target. If you find them, great, go get the other target instead. If you don't see them, you can immediately channel swap in the new zone. And again, if you find them, great, go take them out. If not, you can now use your world map to travel back to Cursed Forest. Now you might get dumped into a completely different channel than the 2 you've already checked, giving you another opportunity to scan for your target. However, even if you end up back in a channel that you've already checked, you are no longer bound by the channel switching cooldown. Even if your round-trip journey to the Icy Peaks only took you 30 seconds, because you've loaded in fresh, you get 1 free immediate channel swap. Now you can check channel 3, which you skipped the first time, for yet another opportunity to find your target. By taking advantage of constantly switching channels by bouncing between zones, you can find your most wanted targets in no time. This leaves only one more quick topic to cover: most wanted completion rewards. Upon completing all 3 daily targets, you'll get to choose a completion reward from the following: 50,000 gold, 125 unstable convergium, or 4 1 to 3 star costume boxes. Many people ask me which of the options is the best. While there is no objective best choice, I personally recommend going with the costume boxes. My reasoning is simple. There are many other ways to generate gold and convergium. AFK farming overnight will provide you with a healthy amount of both if you just dismantle whatever badges you get. There are far fewer options for obtaining costume items, and even getting a single 3-star costume piece from a box can go a long way towards a significant upgrade, so that's definitely my pick. Well guys, I can't believe I'm saying this, but this video is actually over. We made it. So I'm gonna wrap up now. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you still have a pulse. Feel free to leave any questions or feedback in the comment section below, and to reward everyone who made it to the end, I'll be giving 3 lucky commenters a $10 Google Play or iTunes code as long as you leave a comment telling me how you're going to reward yourself for making it to the end of this video. Alright, that's all for now, and I will see you guys real soon. Until next time, peace!